and still be going and as big as WWF maybe. He wouldn't do it.
Dad was a man of his word, you know, and he just didn't want to do it like that. And he was a man of integrity. His word was his bond.
You see, the mentality was that old guard. As a few guys started leaving and going to the WWF and going to WCW, avid viewers of world class, they would watch TBS or USA because those were the same wrestlers that used to be there.
When all that happened, and Vince decided to go out and open up and really cross all the boundaries of the territories, he went with 2 and 3 crews. And those were all visions that Kenny and them had.
And as it kept going, the local areas, business got worse and worse and worse. And it never clicked in their minds. And they just snatched every person. I told Fritz, I said, man, the new age is here.
And that was just the writing on the wall, more or less. Everybody started seeing the picture then.
And when these other territories, because of lack of talent, lack of guidance, lack of a good quality matchmaker that could get and maintain good talent, they just got worse and worse and worse. And they just went off into the night, never to be heard of again.
Kerry later's in a motorcycle accident, which basically tore his foot off, and I had become the booker here. The bookers, you work directly with all the wrestlers. You help, lay out the format of where wrestling's going to go, who's going to be the main eventers and everything. And so I remember I'd been in office less than a week as the booker. I get the call from Fritz that I need to send someone else in Kerry's place. He's had a motorcycle wreck.
I don't know any of the details. There was hearsay. It was an accident and he damaged his foot. And I never quite understood if he severed the foot or crushed the foot or what the deal was.
I get a call from Rick Hazard, who was at the hospital, and he was like, my God, Dave, it looks like an alligator's chewed on his ankle.
Foot was in really pretty pathetic shape when he came in. And we were all worried that he really had a very good chance of losing his foot. However, with the surgical team of Howard Moore and Fred Lester and their aggressive surgery, they have saved Kerry's foot. We have seen pretty remarkable recovery over this last 3-week period.
There was a lot of uncertainty as to what his future would be in the ring after that because it was such a severe injury and he was out for a long time.
Listen to the fans chanting Kerry.
America's first family of wrestling. Their story is one of both tremendous achievement and tragic loss. Now you're invited to share their memories with the first complete story of the Von Erich family as told by Fritz and Doris. The Von Erichs, a family album. You'll enjoy the life of each family member. Fritz, Doris, Jackie, Kevin, David, Kerry, Mike, and Chris. With over 200 photos compiled from personal family albums, you'll learn how the family has grown through the years, both at home and in their professional careers. Be with them as they reach superstardom in the wrestling arena, while overcoming tragedy through their courage and strong Christian belief.
Mike mentioned, he said to me one time, Kel, I don't think I can take this anymore. And that was, I thought, what do you mean by that? I didn't get it.
No matter what Mike would do, no matter how hard Mike would try, he could never live up to Kerry, Kevin, or David. It was sad. One reason was he wasn't that big of a guy.
People would say things to Mike like, boy, you sure are skinny. I was thinking that he's just down, that he'll fight out of it.
The world was just too heavy for Mike, Remember, I went to a meeting, I was called to a meeting. Mike had been missing for a couple of days. And from what I gathered at the meeting that I was at, was that they had already found the suicide note. But oddly enough, there was a big show coming up at Texas Stadium within a couple of weeks. And like any business, you don't want bad publicity right before a big show. So the media wasn't aware of the note. The only thing was the note didn't say where Mike did the deed, you know? And it was 2 or 3 days before they found him that he went to the lake, some pills and beer in a sleeping bag, and said goodbye.
And he killed himself, you know, but you know, he was insane, really.
I didn't know Mike hardly at all. Was saddened to hear of what had happened. It was another case of a tragedy, and we just felt bad for the hurt that Mike evidently had in his life. We felt very bad for the Von Erich family because, you know, losing a child is one of the most unfortunate and distinctive and most difficult experiences we can have as human beings. And then to lose two, there had been the death of a child in the family way back, and then to lose these 2 adult children was, you know, just more than any family could bear, and we just had great compassion for that family. The decline began long before that.
Well, there was a decline. I'm going to say 87, the last of 86, 87, and then 88.
Brody stepped in and took over the role of booker, and he and I were kind of like co-booking, and he was working directly with all the wrestlers and helping with, you know, the format and different things. And then when Brody left, Fritz was cutting a deal with Bum Bright and his group. And Bum Bright and Jim Francis, they were all going to come in and take a piece of the action. And the gates were down, wrestling was down.
But it took myself, Bill Mercer, and Mickey Grant to build in 8 years. They killed in 2 or 3. I mean, they took it from the most prestigious wrestling organization of its time to something that was second rate and second class.
I think we're dealing with a phenomenon that has a certain cyclical quality to it anyway. You know, it runs in cycles, and you'll have periods that are up and periods that are down. And that quality was made even more pronounced by the fact that we had had some key deaths with the Von Erichs.
The fan base had just totally kind of, I think, gone into shock. Here we'd lost David Von Erich. We lose Gino Hernandez. We lose Mike Von Erich to a suicide.
And there was a very pronounced downturn in the operation in about 1986 that continued there for a couple of years until Fritz gave the promotion up in 1988.
Dad pulled out of the business.
And, you know, after he sold the company, they still ran. They tried to run wrestling down there, but it didn't have the same flair.
The production was different. The in-ring wrestling was different.
And it left me with Kerry and Chris just coming up. And in order to give Chris a shot at wrestling, you know, and Chris had been taking this prednisone for his asthma that had stunted his growth. I needed Kerry on board. Well, Kerry had a little bit of a drug problem then. And it had gotten pretty bad.
The world titles belong to the Von Erichs, and we'll go through anything to get them and to keep them. I'll tell you what, the world title meant a whole lot to my brother Dave, and the world tag team title meant a whole lot to Mike. Well, that's one part of the Von Erichs that we can still hold together and pull together and still say the Von Erichs are champions. Together it's something. Well, that is the world tag team titles. There's 2 of us left, Kevin and Kerry. Well, we're coming for the titles, because we'll keep them around these waists where they belong. We fight with the hearts of lions because we win like men.
And so I can never explain to you what it was like.
Mercer. So long, everybody.
I'll say 82, 83, 84 were the biggest years they ever had. The biggest they ever had.
I'm reminded of the old gospel song, Precious Memories, How They Linger, how they ever flood your soul, flood your mind. And they are indeed precious memories. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to have gotten to be a part of it, because I was very much a contrast as the skinny kid from, West Fort Worth who was in college and pursuing other things, who just kind of accidentally fell into that. I'm very thankful for the experiences I gained. I learned a lot about life and a lot about people, more so there than I ever did in 4 years of seminary. And those 10 years there probably equipped me more for effective ministry with and for people in the United Methodist Expression of the Faith than anything I had. So I'm exceedingly grateful. And I can see the hand of God leading me providentially as, one of the great gifts to help me be who God needed me to be later.
It had more of me in it than anything else I'd ever done. I think that I was very instrumental in it. I didn't do it by myself. I had a lot of help. But I had a freedom here that I hadn't had other places. I could bring the talent I wanted to bring. I could develop the talent I wanted to develop. I had 16 promoters I had to please throughout Texas, Arkansas, and Louisiana, and that wasn't always fun, but I never left an arena that I hadn't had a good time that night, and I can't say that about my whole career. There were certain places that when I left the arena, I said I don't ever want to come back. But in world class, I never had that feeling.
It was really fantastic stuff. Walk into a little restaurant here, and this big guy just practically falls all over me, hugging me about wrestling, because it is still in the minds of these people.
I had a good time with world class, and I hope everybody enjoyed it as much watching as I did helping produce it and make it.
There's a gentleman that came just the other day. He was in Taiwan Christmas, and he said, I was in the airport and I saw you on television. 1982 tape. It was a great organization, and of course wrestling is like I told the guy that did the article with me in Dallas Morning News. It was a great article. He called it Wrestling the Dragon, and I explained to him wrestling is dragon and dragon slayers. And the dragon slayers were the Von Erichs. They were the babyface vehicles that made this thing go. They were the franchise. Then again, you had the other great stars with them, and I would bring my lions in, and then, the birds would bring their people in, and that's how we fed the monster.
Bruiser Brody, who once Abdullah the Butcher, walks his way through battles and fights his way through Kerry Jackson. Here's Mark Lawrence. Bruiser Brody, the winner of this bout. And we'll be back.
Bruiser Brody was the type of guy that he could handle any situation.
I wasn't there. I had some dear friends that were there. And I guess Frank had a running problem with this one referee over there. And knowing Frank the way I did, and hearing the stories, I think it was more of just of a ribbing kind of thing. I don't think anything was really, from Frank's side, I don't think it was all that serious. He might have got hot. Got upset a few times, but I really don't know that for a fact. I just know Frank well enough that, I just can't believe he did anything to deserve what happened to him.
Terrible way he had to die in Puerto Rico, stabbed by a bunch of thugs, left laying on the dressing room floor.
This guy sort of set Frank up. Frank got out of the ring, always put on his shower shoes and wrapped a towel around him, had a little night kit that he kept his shampoo and soap and stuff in, carried it into the showers. And these showers at this stadium in Puerto Rico, there's a wall inside the showers. And Frank set his stuff down, hung his towel up, and this guy was in there hidden behind the wall, and Frank turned around to go in there to take a shower, and this guy cut him with a knife.
He ripped it across and grabbed him by his hair and tried to cut his throat. Left him dying on the dressing room floor.
And the crowd was so busy around the stadium that they couldn't get him out right away. And between the weight and cutting him open and all the problems with that, that's what got him.
I was with Hawk and Animal, the Road Warriors, and Steve Williams in Atlanta when we heard it. We just couldn't believe it. I mean, we just hear that Bruiser Brody had died in such a violent way was just abhorring to all of us. It was hard for us to accept.
Never forget the night I was sitting at my home up on the balcony watching TV, and the television station out of Wichita Falls broke in and said they just got a report over the AP wire that Frank Goodish, a.k.a. Bruiser Brody, was killed in Puerto Rico. And just a lot of silence, man.
People didn't even have the common decency to tell his wife he was dead. She found it out when she flew into San Juan, Puerto Rico. She got off the plane and said, "How's Bruce?" And they said he's dead.
And that guy's never spent a day in jail, and still, as far as I know, still works for the office over there. And I find it appalling that any of the Americans that knew Frank would work for an office that would keep him in it. I just find that appalling. Went to Puerto Rico before he passed away, before that happened to him in Puerto Rico, and swore to myself I'd never go back. I'll never go back, except my feet will never touch down on Puerto Rican soil again.
I ask myself, people will ask me sometimes, how? Why? I look at Mike, I think Mike had problems from the toxic shock syndrome and some of the drugs he took. I think Chris was under such high pressure. He took asthma medicine when he was young, and it basically stunted his growth. And when he finally was able to work out, and he was never going to be as big as his brothers as far as size, but for him, he was very muscled up, very muscular. And then he breaks his arm, and that's a big setback. And, when he and Mike were close. And when Mike committed suicide, Chris was never the same. And so then when he took his life, I look back and thought, well, that's the reason why it happened. He just was under too much pressure. But Kerry, I never in my wildest dream would have thought Kerry would have taken his own life. He loved life. He had fun. And I blame Kerry's death on drugs. In his right mind, he would have never done it. He had his brother, and Kevin was up in Jefferson, and they talked on the phone that morning, and Kevin tried to call Fritz. Kerry said he was going to do it, but he had said it before. So it was just bad timing. Fritz was pouring a sidewalk, pouring concrete. Kevin called to tell him. He said, "I got to call you back." And between the time he called him back and that phone call, Kerry showed up, and the tragedy happens. People don't know what a suicide does to a family. The ones that are left behind live the rest of their life saying, what could I have done and what if? Almost taking the blame. I look at Kev right now. The statement he made on the tape they did afterwards, I always think, if you could sum it all up, he said, once I was the brother, I had 5 brothers. Now I'm not even a brother. And I think that's the way you got to sum it up. I remember when Fritz was diagnosed with the cancer, I went out and visited him, and he was shocked. Said he was on his tractor, got dizzy. They said, well, you need to go in for a checkup. Went in for a checkup, has a checkup, and 2 days later finds out he's got literally weeks, maybe months, but weeks to live.
one thing you had to bear in mind, and keep this in mind, was that he had brain cancer. And that was number one, that he was not himself. And so some things that happened later, you know, so on Dad, you know, Dad would have never, I know Dad loved me. He loved me a lot. I know he did, dang it. But he did say to me one time, he said, you'd kill yourself too if you had the guts, but you don't have the guts your brothers had. And I thought, man, Dad wants me to kill myself, you know. And I said, no, Dad, it takes guts to stay here. The easy way is to kill yourself. A few weeks before he died, Dad pulled a 44 on me. I thought he was going to shoot me with a 44. And the same gun that Kerry had killed himself with, 44 Magnum. And God, I saw him pointing that thing at me. I could see the hollow points in the cylinder, you know. I thought, is Dad really going to shoot me, you know? Anyway, I would bring this rage out of him. And it was because he'd lost his sons, you know, and all of his sons, and what a terrible way for me. But I'm going to tell you, my dad was a good man, so please don't take this wrong. But he did. It was the cancer, but he pulled a gun on me, and I looked in his eyes. I thought, oh, he's pointing a gun at me, but he's died. But then I looked in his eyes, and I thought, oh, Dad's not home, you know, or not right this minute, he's not. And so I remember diving out that door and running when I hit the ground. He loved me. I know my dad loved me, but just being around me, I guess, reminded him of all of his other sons that weren't there. And so I can pretty much excuse anything for that.
Despite his problems, which were legend, was one of the nicest, most dignified English guys that you want around. He was a wonderful guy.
Sober
when he
and
was
no
sober.
drugs.
Later on, drugs and the other stuff got to him.
Chris and I were working on a TV project. He wanted to do a TV series of the golden age of wrestling, and he had acquired quite a few tapes. And he was living with a guy by the name of Bruiser. That's the only name I'm going to use. And they became drinking buddies and carousing. And Chris, right after his wedding, he went out to console Bruiser, who was on a drinking binge. And later that night, they got into an argument, and Bruiser took a gun and shot Chris, killed him dead. I went into deep depression for a couple weeks because Chris had been trying to contact me on the phone. He called me 2 or 3 times, and I just never bothered to return his calls. And I felt really, really bad, you know. I really did. I think Chris was reaching out, and I always returned his calls, no matter what. You know, we had problems back and forth, but I always returned his call. And that night, I didn't. And a few days later, Chris was gone.
Downside, or perhaps the darker side of world class. I know of 18 young men that have perished and died since 1982. Whether you believe in curses or whatever, you that presents a good argument on this, because it's really, really uncanny how these things can happen. See, at first, you think of coincidence, and then as they start mounting up, then you think, well, what is it? What's going on?
It's an unbelievable story when I sit back and look. I watched an ESPN tape. I remember one night, I don't remember, I was actually at an airport. I'll never forget, someone said, "Hey, you're on the TV." And I looked up. I was the only one alive on the tape.
By the late 90s, the Sportatorium, a shell of its former self, dilapidated and abandoned, had become home to the homeless of South Dallas. Around 2000, the building was set fire to, scarring the face and nearly destroying the second-floor offices. Not long after, the city deemed the structure a hazard and chained its doors closed. In January 2003, despite the efforts of many to have it made a Dallas landmark, the owner went ahead with a plan that called for the demolition of the Sportatorium and the razing of the land that it sat on.
People came from Japan, Israel, and they wanted to just see the Sportatorium. They wanted to go see the JFK. They didn't want to go see where they shot Dallas. They wanted to see this.
On February 10th, 2003, 19 years to the day after losing his brother David, Kevin Von Erich returned to the building Von Erich fans affectionately called the house that Dave built. As a hazardous materials team removed the signature white asbestos planks from its face, Kevin walked through the doors of the Sportatorium one last time.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Oh, there's a lot left in here, Brian. See, this all went back to the back of the concession stand. That's the road to the top floor. But here's the ring right down here. Let's go back and see what the dressing room looks like.
Good. Which entrance did you come in from, Ted?
Always down here.
Always down on that side?
Yeah.
The table for you was the same entrance?
No, there was one for them and one for us. Had a wood platform right here. Did they have some kind of venue here recently with all the popcorn bottles? Huh. That's the best place to watch matches from right there, that catwalk. Yeah, go up the steps there and walk on out, and no one would know you were there. Yeah. This is where I'd come down right here. Always be people here, and hanging their arms out and clawing at you, Right here's where it'd get ugly.
I heard infamous stories about the bathroom.
Yeah. And then when I was a kid, I used to clean the bathrooms out, too.
Did you?
Yeah. Sold cotton candy right here when I was a little kid. Over in that area there. Yeah, there's gang stuff in here now. Yeah, the heels came out right there. We came out here. This has changed a lot. Yeah, this is all different too. Guys that come in and change this up. This window thing wasn't here. Oh, it's changed up a lot. In fact, this looked like back then. Well, this is not the door we used either. I haven't seen this. I haven't seen it like this before. I never came when it was like this. This is the door I came in. I wrote up here, Kevin Von Erich, People's Champion. The night I won the belt, I wrote it.
Yeah?
Wrote it right right up there. Someone painted over it. The first time I won the American title from Bundy. Yeah, right there on that board. Or the People's Champion. My car was right out there. Dave's car was next to it, and Kerry's car was next to that. I'm here, and I'd start shaking hands with the cops and the security people and all, and then go in there and say hello to all the boys. Made some good friends here. Yeah, it's kind of sad, really. Yeah, it's sad. This is my grandfather's desk. Yeah. What are these books doing here? But they're talking about all these old bums, and there's a couple of Bibles in here, so can't ever judge anybody right off the bat, can you?
Sure.
What a mess, huh?
Yeah.
Let's see if we can get upstairs. This is where I dressed.
Well, they were saying that the stairway was pretty dangerous from all that.
This was the electrical room right here. And I remember it would get so hot in here. They had fans blowing in, the tubes would just glow. Might not be safe here, Brian. I'm going to be careful going up these.
That's what I was thinking too. They were saying
The fire did this, yeah. Huh?
This is your office, huh?
Yeah, this is mine. Actually, this was my dad's right here. Oh, this is all my dad's paneling. My dad put all this paneling in here. Man, I can tell you so many. This is where his desk was, right here. And we'd have meetings where I'd sit by Dad's desk here, Kerry right there. And we did the whole thing right from here.
That'd be kind of bittersweet in a way.
Yeah, I guess that's a good way to put it. Well, I've seen my fill. Oh, I had some good pictures on the walls here, and they were all mine. They're gone. Somebody got them. No, I left so much of my stuff in here. 2 rings, 2 trailers, pictures. It's gone. I've got scars all over my shoulder for the girls scratching like this. You should see my shoulders. And you hold your arms up and they'd scratch you, trying to touch their hands. So fresh. People ask you, after the towers came down, people called me. I did radio shows in New York, and people would say, how do you deal with grief? Like I'm an expert. And I'd tell them, the bad thing about grief is it doesn't get better. It gets worse. It's like you just learn to deal with it, really. You know, it's like, really, as far as I'm concerned, Dave really just died. It's just so final. You know, it's almost too hard a blow for man to take, but we take it and we go on because that's our job in life. Keep going. And I'm gonna tell you, there are no brothers any closer than I was to my brothers. None in the world. A lot of people feel sorry for me. They say, man, I'm sure sorry that for your loss, and I love them for feeling like that, but the truth to it is you shouldn't feel sorry for me. I mean, I had a darn good time. It had a bad ending, but boy, we had a good time. I can only be grateful for the good time I did have, really.
To me, the person that really deserves a lot of respect is Kevin. Kevin, I can see.
Yeah.
Kevin carries the weight of all this on his shoulders, and he's done it with a great amount of dignity and perseverance and surprising mental health.
We lost everything. We lost my brothers. We lost the business. You know, that's life. Now I've got these boys here, and it's just like my life recycled itself, you know. Now I've got all I had.
That was what the mat was set up at right there. Of course, is where the arena, the fans, and